Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Joshua Marley and I'll be presenting to you my electronics design project, which I've decided to call VoiceGuard, a more informative alarm. Okay, the major issue we currently find ourselves in is indeed the coronavirus pandemic. One of its many devastating effects has been the closing of non-essential businesses, whereby business premises are largely unattended for most of the time, and desperate individuals may resort to crime to resolve it in order to survive during this current time. Because of this, crimes are likely to increase, and therefore an effective alarm system is a must-have, which led me to think if any improvements could be made. As unprotected businesses and even unprotected homes, the loss of property can cause financial burdens for individuals and lasting psychological effects following a break-in or a life-threatening situation can have far-reaching effects. I myself possess an alarm such as this, and as you can imagine, should a sensor be triggered, an alarm will sound and an alert will be sent to a security company that will be able to dispatch a response team. However, I am somewhat displeased with this alarm because how it would work in a break-in scenario, the alarm will sound, most likely waking me up from a deep sleep within my room. Now the issue is, should the intruder be dangerous, I have no means of determining his whereabouts, as this alarm is fixed onto a wall within a hallway away from my room. Therefore, the only way for me to determine the possible location of said intruder would be for me to make my way to the alarm and take note which numbers lit up and the corresponding room that number represents. And because of this, I believe an improvement can be made, as crucial information such as this, I believe, should be learned quickly, as this could largely determine the possible outcomes in such an event, whether I keep my life or possibly lose a limb. Therefore, for my design project, I decided that I would create a program, an alarm system, that is more informative than the current systems being used, by using an audio output to alert the users of the location of a break-in through audible announcements on the premises to allow for more coordinated response. Looking at some statistics from Stats SA, I learned that break-ins is South Africa's #1 crime, affecting both high-income households and low-income households. Notably, the highest number of house break-ins occur within Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and our Western Cape, and the least number occurring in the Free State and the Northern Cape. It should also be noted that only about 84% of incidences are actually reported to the police. Also looking at a study published by the University of North Carolina, whereby more than 400 incarcerated individuals were interviewed, those individuals who were in prison for breaking in and stealing property from other people's households. Of those who were interviewed, 60% said they would first look to see if they could spot any alarm system before deciding should they rob a place, and the majority of which said if they did spot an alarm, they would move on to another target. Okay. As I continued my research, I learned that my idea is not as original as I thought it was, as this alarm system seen here, being named Voice Alert, does what I in essence imagined for my design project. It is capable of recording audio input from a user to be played as a warning should the appropriate sensor be triggered. It is also capable of interfacing with existing alarm sensors, allowing you to add as many sensors as you wish to your system. It also possesses electrical contacts which act as relays, which could turn on, say, lighting should a sensor be triggered. Despite this, I still decided to continue with my design project idea, trying to recreate such an alarm system using Arduino, and as a test of my electronic skills and coding know-how. Should I be successful in recreating such a system, I would place emphasis on making the source code and the schematic to make such a system openly available to any competent builders. As today, people indeed would like to have an adequate security system, but more than often, most recent and sophisticated alarm systems are expensive, and therefore by providing the schematics and the coding for this project openly, this may reduce the cost for some individuals who are unable to pay for an alarm system. However, I will state I cannot guarantee it would work perfectly, but nonetheless it will still be a learning experience for myself trying to create this system. Okay, now looking at existing Arduino projects on the Arduino website, I found this project that was made by a user who decided to designate himself as Percy Platypus.
No.
This project here allows the user to utilize existing alarm systems by connecting them to the Arduino project. Now, the motivation of this project is that the owner had initially purchased a GSM alarm system which makes use of a cellular network. However, he stated when the cellular network's down, his alarm system was effectively useless, which led to him learning how to communicate with his alarm sensors using Arduino. And so, thanks to this person's work, I was able to get a better idea how I would accomplish the project. Okay, here's a picture of what I made. Now, I did intend to make some form of housing for the components. However, as I built my project, I struggled with a lot of issues in the coding, and it took longer than I initially expected to resolve. So I made the decision to spend as much time as I could trying to get my code to be as functional as possible, and therefore I created this. Here's an electrical diagram I made, which represents all the components in the project. To recreate the alarm system, I would make use of a MAX 9814 Adafruit microphone to record audio input and save that input to an SD card using the SD card adapter breakout board, and outputting that audio through a speaker along with its existing amplifier. And I would also make a user interface which would consist of an LCD display screen and a toggle button, as well as an encoder to allow the user to navigate a menu. And the project would be able to communicate or receive signals from existing alarm sensors using an RF 453 MHz module. Here's another schematic I made, which is by a small degree more easier to understand than the previous one. Here's a rough sketch I made during the early stages of the project. Here, if you pay close attention, I initially planned to make use of 6 buttons for the user to navigate the menu, but in the end I changed that so that the user would make use of a toggle button and an encoder. Okay, here's my bill of materials for the components used to create this project. Now, if I had to buy all the components to make this project, that would give us a total of 1,260 Rand. But thankfully, New Cloud already possessed some of the necessary components, so in the end I actually spent 822 Rand. Now, my project uses a door sensor instead of a PIR motion sensor. Now, if I had used a PIR motion sensor, making it the equivalent to the voice alert alarm system which we previously saw, that would cost you about 1,312 Rand if, again, you had to buy all the components. And now for comparison, if you were to buy the voice alert alarm system from from the people on their official website, you would pay 5,777 rand. But
For the same thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
that's
How many sensors are included in the
Just we can ask the question.
But should my project work just as well as theirs, you would be able to save 4,465 rand. Okay. To fully explain the code would take too long, but I will.
Engines of code.
But I will quickly tell you that the code includes functions that allow the program to determine what to display on the LCD key shield, LCD display, depending on where you are within the menu. I apologize. Is that not playing?
Played yesterday.
It's video.
There you go.
So yeah, you'll see soon enough it was a lot of coding that I had to do. Which is so to quickly tell you some things about the code, long portions of the code is where I'm reading or writing to the SD card or taking data from the SD card and turning it into a string variable whereby I do some string manipulation to extract some useful information from that string, and other functions that allow the program to determine where the user is within the menu system that I've created. Okay, now we'll play a video showing some of the functions that I was able to accomplish in the time I had. This video will show that it is possible to set the brightness of the LCD display and the volume level of the audio system, as well as do a test on the audio output system, testing if the speaker works.
We're up to the sound.
Yeah, it's a bit below.
A way of deterring burglars, especially depending on what audio you decide to play with the system. It provides a more intuitive way of alerting the owner of break-ins. It is more adaptable to different dialects, that being if you have a strong accent, there may be a particular advantage in being able to record your own voice. I believe my user interface is more intuitive and easier to use than some current alarm systems. And further developed, I imagine this project could be used to announce safety procedures. Should a fire be detected, the system could announce safety routes to be taken, or maybe the location of first aid kits or fire extinguishers. It could perhaps inform individuals over a large area, such as security guards who are tasked with patrolling a large area. And data logging of which sensors triggered could potentially be used to identify weak points within secure areas as well. Okay, for time management, I spent a lot of time learning the code for the menu, and I spent more time than I expected solving the coding issues, and at one point I could have paid closer attention to details concerning the Arduino, but I was able to resolve the issue being that the nature of the pins made it unsuitable for me to use an Arduino Uno, and therefore I would rate myself a 6 out of 10 for time management, but this is largely because of the issues I ran into, making it very difficult to stick to any schedules I had planned. Okay, here's some screenshots of my activity log showing some of the tasks I accomplished on some days and technical issues I made note of. As you can see, most of this term I spent learning theory for this course and working on this project. Successes and difficulties for this project: at one point the microphone failed, which made it impossible for me to do the necessary test to determine if my code was genuinely working. At one point I couldn't record something while displaying on the LCD display, but through the clever use of Boolean variables and Boolean operators, I managed to resolve this. I also struggled to use the function to play the audios because I initially wanted to designate the audio files with a string variable, but soon learned that I had to convert to a string variable to a char array, resolving the issue, and also managed to corrupt my SD card because I did not allow the program enough time to finish writing to the SD card, but was also quickly resolved just by reformatting the card and uploading from backup files. Okay. Many thanks goes to the following people who helped me tremendously with this project. Nicholas, who taught myself and my fellow classmates how to code in the Arduino IDE. He also created coding exercises which I think prepared me tremendously for this task, and he was always prepared to help and answer any questions we may have had. And also thanks goes to Richard, who provided readily available components and tools, and his insightful questions helped me resolve some coding issues as well. Okay, skills I learned during this project. Primarily, I believe I learned how to remain calm when solving or tackling complex problems, especially when looking at massive amounts of code. Bad habits, I didn't strictly follow my Gantt chart, but that's because of the issues I ran into. Skills I learned during this project include troubleshooting and problem solving, more than often occurring with the code, and I also learned coding in the Arduino IDE, as well as logical and systematic thinking that will allow you to create effective and efficient code, and the importance of attentiveness when creating electronic projects, especially when coding and making sure you don't blow any hardware components. Okay, thank you.
Well,